They were the epitome of perfection, a power couple adored by everyone. Manny Blackwell, a rising star in the world of real estate, and Jaleesa, J, seemed to have it all. Their love story was the envy of Atlanta, broadcasted across social media with images of lavish parties, designer outfits, and red carpet events. To the world, they were the golden couple, inseparable, destined for greatness, but behind the gleaming facade, something darker was brewing. What appeared to be the perfect love story was, in fact, a carefully constructed illusion. Jealousy, obsession, and the need for control began to erode everything they had built. One secret, one betrayal, shattered their carefully crafted world, transforming their love into a bloody nightmare. How does a seemingly perfect relationship unravel into tragedy? What happens when love becomes possession and obsession takes over? This is the story of Manny and Jay, a love twisted beyond repair, where passion gave way to manipulation, and ultimately, murder. Before we dive into this shocking case, like this video and subscribe for more chilling tales of love, lies, and betrayal. Manny Blackwell was 30 years old, and by any measure, his life seemed like a dream. A rising star in the competitive Atlanta real estate market, he was the embodiment of success. His charm was undeniable, his smile, infectious, his confidence, magnetic. Manny had a way of making everything look effortless, whether he was closing high-profile deals or showing off his athletic prowess at charity events. Once a promising college athlete with a future in sports, Manny had smoothly transitioned into the world of business, where his natural knack for negotiation and networking quickly propelled him to the top. Everywhere he went, he exuded power, ambition, and grace. But what truly captivated the public was his relationship with Jaleesa, J. Rutherford. J was 27, a force of nature in her own right. A brilliant student, she had always been destined for greatness. With her beauty, sharp mind, and unwavering ambition, she was on the fast track to becoming a top attorney. People looked at her and saw a woman who was going places, a woman who had everything under control. And when Jay and Manny were seen together, they were the perfect match. They were the couple that everyone admired, the ones whose love seemed flawless, the ones who made others believe in fairy tales. The two had met in their sophomore year of college, Jay at Spelman College and Manny at Morehouse. Their connection was instant, almost magnetic. In a world where ambition and success often breed competition, Manny and Jay were a rare pairing, two young people who not only shared a love for each other but also for the future they were building. Their chemistry was undeniable, their partnership strong. Manny supported Jay as she excelled in her studies, and Jay rooted for Manny as he began to make his mark in real estate. Together, they were a force. Beautiful, smart, successful, and seemingly unstoppable. In their college years, their bond was pure. Their shared dreams of success in both their careers and their personal lives painted the perfect picture of what many people aspire to: love, success, and the perfect partnership. As they grew older, so did their status as the golden couple of Atlanta. They were everywhere, attending high-profile events, posting perfectly curated photos on social media, and becoming the subject of countless discussions among their peers. Their relationship, always in the spotlight, was admired by everyone: friends, followers, even strangers. To the world, Manny and Jay were living proof that hard work and love could take you anywhere. Their social media profiles were nothing short of a modern-day love story. Pictures of them traveling to exotic destinations, attending black-tie galas, and laughing together under the bright city lights of Atlanta flooded their feeds. To the outside world, their love seemed unshakable. They were everything anyone could ever want, a power couple, the epitome of what it meant to have it all. But even behind all the glitz and glamour, there was something more beneath the surface. Manny and Jay were not just admired for their achievements, they were envied. As their success grew, so did the pressure to maintain their perfect image. Behind the smiles, there were challenges, insecurities, and conflicts that no one could see, tensions that began to simmer beneath the perfect exterior. Yet, despite the cracks that were starting to form, they were still seen as untouchable, two people destined to be together forever. This was the life everyone saw. This was the life Manny and Jay presented to the world, a life full of promise, ambition, and love. As Manny's career continued to soar, the life that once felt like a dream began to turn into a nightmare. At 30 years old, Manny was on top of the world, his real estate empire expanding, his name becoming synonymous with success in Atlanta. He had everything he had ever wanted: money, fame, power, but the one thing he couldn't seem to escape was the suffocating grip of Jay. It wasn't that Manny didn't love Jay. He did. But love, at least the kind of love that Jay had for him, had begun to feel like a prison. As Jay's insecurities grew, so did her need to control every aspect of Manny's life. What began as innocent affection slowly morphed into something darker: obsession. Jay couldn't stand the thought of anyone else having Manny, not even for a moment. Every glance he gave, every word he spoke to another woman, became a point of tension. Slowly, Manny began to realize that his every move was being watched, his every interaction scrutinized. Jay's jealousy and possessiveness had always been there, simmering beneath the surface, but now it was all-consuming. She knew where Manny was at every moment: when he left for work, when he went to the gym, when he met with colleagues. Her surveillance grew more calculated. If he didn't respond to a text immediately, she'd ask where he was. If he spent time with a friend, she'd interrogate him about the details. It was exhausting. Manny, who had once thrived on the attention, found himself withdrawing, not because he no longer loved Jay, but because he felt emotionally trapped. The worst part was that Jay's obsession wasn't obvious at first. It wasn't loud or confrontational. It was subtle, insidious, creeping into every part of their relationship until it was too late to recognize how far gone things had become. Manny tried to reason with her, told her she didn't need to worry, that he was committed to her, but nothing worked. The more he reassured her, the more she doubted. And the more she doubted, the more controlling she became. Manny, feeling increasingly isolated, found solace in the one place that had always been his escape: his work. But even that began to feel hollow. The people who admired him, the colleagues who respected him, none of it could fill the growing emptiness inside. That's when he met Kira McMillan. Kira was everything Jay wasn't: outgoing, confident, and free-spirited. She was a colleague at one of Manny's real estate ventures, a rising star in her own right. She was also the first person in a long time who made Manny feel seen and heard in a way that Jay never did. It wasn't that he was looking for an affair, but Kira's attention was a relief, a breath of fresh air in a relationship that had begun to feel more like a suffocating chokehold. It started innocently enough: coffee meetings, casual conversations about work. But soon, those meetings turned into lunches, those lunches into late-night texts. Manny was drawn to her warmth, to the way she made him feel like he could be himself without the weight of constant surveillance. It wasn't long before things went further. What started as an emotional escape became a full-blown affair. Manny knew it was wrong, but in a way, he also knew it was inevitable. He was craving freedom, the kind of freedom that Jay's obsessive love no longer allowed, but he wasn't prepared for the storm that was about to hit. Jay, always vigilant, began noticing small changes in Manny's behavior. The late nights at the office, the distant look in his eyes when they spoke. She started to suspect something was off. Jay wasn't one to trust easily, and her insecurities had only grown over the years. She didn't need to confront Manny directly, she had ways of finding out the truth. Her meticulous surveillance reached a new level. She dug through his phone, checked his messages, and analyzed every interaction he had with Kira. The truth was right in front of her, but Jay didn't act out of anger. No, she was too clever for that. Instead, she manipulated him emotionally, knowing that her control over him was the only thing she had left. She didn't yell. She didn't demand answers. She simply began using Manny's betrayal against him, tightening her grip with every passing day. Manny had hoped for a fresh start with Kira, a chance to escape the toxic cycle he found himself in. But now, with Jay's knowledge of the affair hanging over him, he felt more trapped than ever. Jay's passive-aggressive behavior became a constant reminder of the power she still had over him. She knew how to make him feel guilty, how to make him feel like he owed her something. She twisted every situation, used their past against him, and even reminded him of the sacrifices she had made for him, for their relationship. Manny's world began to spin out of control. What had once been a promising escape with Kira was now just another layer in the complex web of manipulation Jay had expertly woven. The more Manny tried to distance himself, the tighter Jay's hold became. She wasn't just trying to keep him physically near her, she was trying to keep him emotionally imprisoned, and it was working. The affair wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of a new phase in their relationship, one built on lies, manipulation, and a suffocating need for control. As Jay's obsession grew, so did her power over Manny. And he was quickly learning that escaping her grasp might be far harder than he had ever imagined. As the months dragged on, Manny found himself at a crossroads. The weight of his toxic relationship with Jay had become unbearable, and the idea of living a life suffocated by her jealousy and manipulation had started to feel like a slow death. The suffocating grip she had on him was breaking him, piece by piece. He felt like he was drowning in her obsession, and every breath he took was more like a gasp for air than a sign of life. It was during one of his most desperate moments, when he could no longer stand the constant surveillance, the unrelenting control, that he met Simone Carter. He was everything Manny needed, everything he had been searching for in the midst of the chaos he had created. A successful socialite with a personality as vibrant as his smile, Simone breathed a new kind of energy into his life. He didn't know the details of Manny's tortured relationship with Jay, and for the first time in what felt like years, Manny didn't have to be anyone but himself when he was with him. Their connection was immediate, effortless. Simone's laughter felt like a balm on the wounds Jay had left behind, his carefree attitude a stark contrast to the constant tension he had grown accustomed to. When they were together, there were no rules. There were no expectations, no constant questioning of every word he spoke, every decision he made. Simone allowed him to be free in a way Jay never had. It was raw, unfiltered, and beautiful. For the first time in a long time, Manny remembered what it felt like to feel alive. Simone didn't need him for anything. He wasn't looking to control him or keep him on a tight leash. He wasn't obsessed with the idea of being perfect or maintaining a flawless public image. He was just himself. And for Manny, that was more than enough. It was a freedom he hadn't known he'd been missing. Their affair grew, and with each stolen moment, the walls Manny had built around himself started to crumble. He knew what he had with Simone was real. It was authentic in a way that his relationship with Jay could never be. But as the months passed, Manny also knew that the secret of their relationship couldn't stay hidden forever. Simone was everything he had dreamed of, a fresh start, a second chance at happiness, and he couldn't keep living a lie. Manny's guilt over his betrayal of Jay began to eat at him, but it was overshadowed by the truth that he couldn't ignore any longer. He needed out. His relationship with Jay was toxic beyond repair, and he could no longer pretend that everything was fine. The man who had once been captivated by Jay's beauty and ambition was now a prisoner in his own life, held hostage by her obsession. He could no longer stay in a relationship that suffocated him, where love had become a weapon, and every move he made was scrutinized. The idea of spending the rest of his life with Simone was no longer a fantasy, it was the only reality he could imagine. So, after months of hiding in the shadows of his own life, Manny made the boldest decision of his life. He was going to marry Simone. It wasn't an easy decision. Manny knew the fallout from leaving Jay would be catastrophic. He had built a life, an image, with Jay at his side. They were the golden couple, the envy of Atlanta. Their love had been broadcast for the world to see, admired by thousands, envied by many. But Manny had lived that life long enough to know that appearances could be deceiving. What the world saw was not the truth. Behind the glamorous photos, the lavish events, and the perfect smiles, there was a man drowning in his own misery. Manny didn't want to be the man who was trapped in a cycle of emotional manipulation. He didn't want to spend another day under Jay's control. He wanted to be with Simone, the man who made him feel like he could breathe again, the man who allowed him to be himself without fear of judgment or retribution. So, in a moment of clarity, Manny took the leap. He proposed to Simone. It was a quiet affair, a moment that felt like the beginning of a new chapter in his life, one that was all his own. There were no cameras, no publicists, no social media posts. It was just Manny and Simone, alone in their own little world, free from the expectations that had suffocated him for so long. It was everything he had dreamed of and more. For the first time in years, Manny felt like he was truly living for himself. He knew Jay wouldn't take it well. How could she, when everything she had built her life around was about to come crashing down? But at that moment, none of that mattered. Manny was finally choosing his own happiness, and in doing so, he was taking back the life he had allowed someone else to control for far too long. It was a decision that would change everything: his future, his past, and the very foundation of his world. For the first time in a long time, Manny felt alive. And with Simone by his side, he was ready to start anew. The night of their wedding was supposed to be a celebration of love, of new beginnings. Manny and Simone had just exchanged vows in an intimate ceremony, free from the pressures and expectations of their past. The world outside, the one that had once demanded so much from Manny, seemed a distant memory. They had made it, together, side by side. But as the champagne was poured, as the first dance unfolded, something was about to shatter the illusion of peace they had carefully crafted. Jay had found out. She wasn't invited, of course, but that didn't matter. No one could keep Jay out of Manny's life, not even the walls of a wedding. When she discovered the truth, that Manny had not only betrayed her with Simone but had gone as far as marrying him, her rage erupted like a storm breaking through a peaceful sky. It was no longer just a betrayal, it was a declaration of war. Manny had chosen Simone, had chosen freedom, and in doing so, he had broken the fragile hold she had on him. Jay was a woman who had always been used to control. She controlled every moment of their relationship, every decision, every look Manny gave her. She couldn't fathom the idea that he had not only moved on, but had left her behind, in the most public way possible. In the deepest parts of her being, she knew this would happen one day, but that didn't make the pain of it any less excruciating. When Jay stormed into the reception, her eyes wild with fury, the room seemed to freeze. All eyes turned as she made her way through the crowd, her voice loud and sharp, cutting through the hushed whispers. Manny, who had hoped to keep his past behind him, saw her before anyone else did. His stomach sank as she approached, her face a twisted mask of anger and hurt. Simone, standing beside him, looked from Manny to Jay with confusion. She didn't know the history, the weight of what was happening, but the tension was thick in the air. Is this some kind of joke? Jay's voice was like acid, dripping with venom. You leave me for him? After everything we had? Everything I did for you? She was shaking now, her body trembling with rage, her eyes wild with a mixture of disbelief and hatred. Manny stood tall, his hands clenched at his sides. He had prepared himself for this moment, knowing that Jay wouldn't just walk away quietly. But nothing could prepare him for the raw fury in her eyes. This wasn't just a woman scorned, it was a woman who felt her entire world crashing down around her. The perfect life, the perfect couple, the image they had so carefully cultivated, it was all gone. And in its place was something far darker. I'm done, Jay. Manny's voice was steady, unwavering. I've moved on. I love Simone. And I won't let you control me anymore. The words felt like a final blow, a breaking of the chains that had bound him for so long. He had said it, he had finally said it. And for a moment, in the chaos of the reception, the world seemed to hold its breath, but Jay wasn't listening. She couldn't hear him over the pounding of her own fury. She took a step closer, her voice rising with each word. You think you can just walk away from me? After everything? You owe me, Manny. I made you who you are. I gave you everything. And you just throw me away like I'm nothing because of a man. Her eyes narrowed, a dangerous glint flashing in the depths of her gaze. You think this is over? It's far from over. Manny felt the weight of her words, but the truth was already out there. He had chosen Simone, and he was done. No more lies, no more manipulation. He wasn't afraid of Jay anymore. He had been afraid for too long, but that was over now. Simone, who had stood silently by his side throughout the confrontation, now stepped forward, his presence a solid anchor in the storm. Manny's made his choice, Jay, Simone said calmly, though his voice held a warning. You need to let go. But Jay didn't hear him. Her eyes were locked onto Manny, her face twisted in disbelief and rage. You think he's going to love you forever? You think he'll never regret this? You don't know him like I do. Her voice dropped, becoming a low, dangerous whisper. You'll see. This is just the beginning. The silence in the room felt suffocating as Jay's words hung in the air, thick with a promise of vengeance. Manny's heart raced, but he didn't flinch. He was done running. He had faced her wrath and survived, and now he was free. But Jay wasn't finished. With a final, venomous glare, she turned on her heel and stormed out of the reception hall, her heels clicking sharply against the floor as she disappeared into the night. The room was left in stunned silence, the weight of her presence lingering in the air like a storm cloud. Manny stood motionless for a moment, his heart pounding in his chest. He could feel the anger and hatred in Jay's eyes, could hear her words echoing in his mind. But for she knew exactly where he would be. Jay had always known how to play the game, how to manipulate, how to get what she wanted. And this time, what she wanted was to put an end to the life she felt was rightfully hers. It wasn't hard to find Simone. Jay knew the places he frequented and the routes he took. Jay waited, hidden in the shadows, her breath steady, her hands trembling with a mix of anger and something far more sinister. She wasn't just angry, she was consumed, possessed by the need to destroy everything that had once been hers. Manny had made her feel worthless, like an afterthought, and she would show him just how far she would go to reclaim what she thought was hers. When Simone stepped outside to make a phone call, Jay saw her chance. She stepped out from the shadows, her movements calm, deliberate. On the outside, she appeared composed, even serene, as though nothing in the world could shake her. But underneath, the rage boiled, a fury that could no longer be contained. Without a word, without warning, Jay attacked. The first blow caught Simone off guard, but there was no mercy in Jay's eyes. She was like a woman possessed, her hatred turning her into something unrecognizable. The knife flashed in the sunlight as it found its mark again and again, stabbing Simone with a brutal, relentless fury. 16 times. Each stab a cruel punctuation in the story she was writing in her mind, each one a claim on the life that Jay believed should have been hers. Simone never had a chance to be. By the time the police arrived, the damage was done. They found Jay standing over Simone's lifeless body, eerily calm, as though the violence that had unfolded just moments before had been nothing more than a distant memory. There was no emotion in her face, no fear, no regret, no sorrow. Only coldness. Jay didn't resist when the police arrived. There was no need. She had done what she came to do. She had taken Simone's life, and she had destroyed the future Manny had hoped to build. She wasn't even afraid of the consequences. In her mind, she had reclaimed what was hers. The officers didn't have to ask her anything. She didn't speak, but the look in her eyes said everything. She had no remorse. She was done. Manny would never be free. She had made sure of that. The streets that had been so quiet before now buzzed with the arrival of the police, their sirens wailing in the distance. But all Jay could think of was Manny, how he would never be free of her, how his perfect world would always carry the stain of her obsession. As she was led away in handcuffs, Jay's face remained impassive, the weight of her actions not yet hitting her. The world would soon know what had happened, but for Jay, it didn't matter. She had left her mark on the world, and nothing would ever erase what she had done. The life that Manny had tried to build had been shattered in an instant, and all the dreams of the future he had shared with Simone were gone. Stolen by the woman who couldn't let go of the past, the murder of Simone Carter shook the nation, and the media frenzy that followed only intensified the public's fascination with the case. The once perfect couple, Manny Blackwell and Jay Rutherford, had fallen apart in the most violent of ways. Some people sympathized with Jay, seeing her as a woman devastated by betrayal, while others saw her as a dangerous individual consumed by jealousy. The public debate raged on. Was she a victim of love gone wrong, Or was she a woman whose obsession had led her to commit murder? Investigators uncovered disturbing evidence that painted a clear picture of Jay's possessive behavior. Phone records, messages, and even voice memos revealed her constant surveillance of Manny, her controlling nature, and the emotional toll it had taken on him. Friends and colleagues spoke about how Manny had begun to retreat emotionally, signaling that their relationship had been crumbling long before the final act of violence. The case sparked a larger discussion about the dangers of toxic relationships, where love morphs into control and obsession. Could this tragedy have been avoided? Was Jay a victim of her own emotions, or had her actions been calculated over time? The investigation moved swiftly, revealing how Jay's jealousy had been a simmering force that eventually boiled over. The prosecution argued that her obsession had reached a breaking point, leading to the fatal act of revenge against Simone. They painted her as a woman who had been emotionally manipulating Manny for years, leading to a final, violent explosion. Jay's defense team, however, painted a different picture. They claimed that she had acted in a moment of uncontrollable emotion after the crushing betrayal. The jury was left to decide whether Jay's actions were a result of momentary rage or the culmination of a long history of obsession. In the end, Jay was convicted of first-degree murder. The court sentenced her to life in prison, a verdict that left many divided. Some saw her as a woman whose love had been tragically unrequited, while others believed her obsession had driven her to destroy everything in her path. This case serves as a tragic reminder of how love, when corrupted by jealousy and control, can destroy everything. What once seemed like a fairy tale between Manny and Jay quickly spiraled into a nightmare, leaving behind devastation and a life lost. Could this tragedy have been avoided if Manny had spoken out sooner? How can we prevent toxic love from turning deadly? If this shocking story left you speechless, like and subscribe for more chilling tales of love, betrayal, and the darkness that can hide behind perfect facades.